Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Legend of Korra Book 3 speculation video. This one's going to be speculation going into K311, The Ultimatum, which is going to air on Friday, digitally. So yeah, don't have as much speculation about this episode as I have in the previous speculation videos I've done. But there is a clear, obvious kind of thing to speculate on, and that is, what is the ultimatum? Is it what Zahir told Mako and Bolin to the message he gave them to give to Korra? Uh, Probably. And because the next episode is called The Ultimatum, you kind of get the sense that the next episode is going to be the journey of Mako and Bolin trying to find Korra. But the setup at the end of the last episode with Korra and Asami meeting up with Lin, Zuko, and Tonraq seems like they're going to Ba Sing Se anyway, so you kind of may have this dynamic where Mako and Bolin leave Ba Sing Se as they enter it, and they kind of miss each other, and so Korra goes in confronting Zahir not knowing what he told her, or something like that. The only thing we know really going into the finale is that there is a scene with Mako and Bolin apparently in the catacombs of Ba Sing Se, which is obviously where the book 2 Earth finale took place, and that'd be interesting. But we don't know if the other Team Avatar members are in the catacombs as well. And then the clip that we've seen from the upcoming episode is just Mako and Bolin trying to commandeer an airship to get out of the city to get the message to Korra immediately, but all the looting has caused the ships to be basically robbed of all of the stuff that makes them able to fly, so they may not be able to get out that way. Wasn't the best preview clip in terms of, far and away that's probably the least important part of the episode, but whatever, it gave us something to go on for this episode. I assume at some point Mako and Bolin will go back to see their family, whether that be to get help, find a different way out of the city, or something like that. I think just because it was such a big part of the early episodes, just Mako and Bolin talking about their family, then finding their family again, that it would be natural that because they're in Ba Sing Se again, that they would go to see them, especially with the walls down and stuff like that. It should be a bit easier for them to get to their family, but I'm not really sure. That I don't even think that's guaranteed to happen at all, though I think it should happen just because all those characters have been introduced. Then I'm not really sure where they go from there, if they meet their family, how they get out of the city, how they come to meet up with Korra, if it's not just, end of the episode, they both meet each other as they're kind of, one's exiting, one's entering Ba Sing Se, something like that. But the main thing I think that needs to happen in the next episode, not that I suspect to happen, but I think needs to happen, is that a good portion of the next episode needs to focus on the Airbenders. Just because we haven't seen them since episode 7, and they apparently do get involved in things, because we still have that scene from the trailer that we haven't seen yet, the only one we haven't seen yet, and that is Kai apparently falling off the mountain, kind of some smoke coming off his body. It seems like he was knocked off by maybe one of Pele's blasts, and that may lead into what the ultimatum actually is that they're going to attack the Airbenders if Korra doesn't do what Zahir wants, or whatever. But I think for sure they need to go back to the Air Temple, Northern Air Temple, just to give us some catch-up with those characters, like what's Tenzin up to, we haven't seen him in so long, what's Jinora up to, what's Kai up to, what's Opal like, how she reacted to being at the Air Temple, how good of an airbender is she now, what's her relationship like with a lot of these characters, she probably knows who Tenzin is and stuff like that, and even just Kai and Opal, what's their relationship like, and Kai and Jinora and stuff like that. That should be fun to see. But overall, it's just it's interesting because that for sure I think has to come into things, but I'm not overly sure how that comes into things, because it just seems so separate and on its own, the Airbender stuff, that I'm not sure how it becomes interlinked with everything. Especially with the Earth Queen gone, that seemed like the obvious connection for the Airbenders, but now she's out of the picture. What's going on? And then, of course, like if it is indeed the Red Lotus attacking the Airbenders, how did they get there? It seems that the finale potentially takes place in Ba Sing Se, so again, what's going on? Um, that's the one thing that like, everything seems to be building up towards the finale, though we don't really know what the finale is going to involve. Like to some extent, we knew that the Amon Korra thing would end up being a fight between them. That Korra would have to come up with some way to combat Amon, but it's not as complex as this situation here. Book 2, I think it was obvious that it was going to be the next Harmonic Convergence. They set that up for so long. Big battle, all this other stuff happening. But this time round, it's just kind of like, we assume it's going to take place in Ba Sing Se, but at the same time, it would almost make more sense for it to happen somewhere else, with the Red Lotus moving on to take out some other world leaders. So there's that too, because this episode, the last episode, Long Live the Queen, really felt like a little bit of setup towards the finale. The Ultimatum, this week's episode, is going to be the last single episode released digitally, because it's episode 11, so there's only 12 and 13 left, but they're going to air together on the 22nd, which is not this Friday, but next Friday. So we've only got 2 weeks of Korra left, so this episode has to be the final setup, putting the pieces in place before the finale. So I assume we'll roughly know what's going on with the finale after this episode, at least I hope. But I think a lot of this stuff is going to revolve around what exactly the message was. What did he say to Mako and Bolin? Because it's interesting the way that whole scene went down, that he used them as prisoners initially to try and get Korra captive. Then he switched it around, and he's now willingly letting go of Mako and Bolin, not keeping them as hostage to get Korra to him, but he's giving them a message to give to Korra that's apparently going to make her do something that Zahir wants or something like that. So whatever he's saying has more leverage over Korra, or is more interesting to Korra than the idea of wanting to save Mako and Bolin. That's fascinating to me that he'd do that, and it definitely presents this situation that if this what the reason is, what he actually says, isn't something that kind of makes sense. It's like, wait, that's not as good as just having those two captive. It could be like, wow, this is a bit disappointing. So there is definitely a little bit of kind of like, you need to get this right going into the next episode with the reveal of what he said, but we'll have to see what actually happens in the end. But I do hope that it's something like important, and it is a bit of a shock. But again, it just plays into the whole confusing stuff of what's going on with Zahir, and that he decided that he wasn't going to actively pursue Korra, he was going to do something to make Korra come to him. Korra's going there anyway, she's the Avatar, Ba Sing Se's in chaos, why wouldn't she go? So whatever Mako and Bolin are going to say to her is going to make her go even more quickly and even more intently to Ba Sing Se. And then there's the setup of, there's a bunch of world leaders with her. Lin's the leader of the Republic City Police Force. Tonraq's the leader of the Southern Water Tribe. Zuko is a former Fire Lord. So they're all people who Zahir would be against just because of their positions, former positions, and stuff like that. So there's, again, clear setup. Even more than that, there's the setup of when Korra was kidnapped nearly kidnapped 13 years ago, it was Tonraq, Tenzin, Zuko and Sokka versus the Red Lotus, and they won that fight. They've kind of set up when they escaped Tonraq versus Zahir at some point, maybe. So, you could potentially have Tonraq, Lin, Zuko, and Tenzin maybe arriving versus the Red Lotus as kind of like a secondary fight. But then where does Korra come into play? That is, Varrick apparently is going to come back into things at some point and will have some potentially bigger role, or at least he's going to say something of interest to us. I think they've sort of set up something with him, but I don't know what it is, something to do with magnets. But again, I'm not sure. So it's just a lot of there's definite speculation about this episode, but it's hard to fully know what exactly is going on. But yeah, I'm excited for this episode, but it's a little bit difficult to speculate on, just because like I don't think there's any obvious kind of ways to go down with regards to what Zahir is telling Mock and Bolin to tell to Korra, just because the situation doesn't seem to work for most of the obvious ones I'd have to say. But yeah, that's been the video. That's my speculation for the ultimatum. Thanks for watching, and bye.